There is one central belief within the Jewish tradition. That's what we sometimes call monotheism. That there is one God, and that God is indivisible. That is the essence of the Shema statement. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. However, how airtight is this? How far can monotheism stretch? So when we look at any of these concepts, for example, here in God, what we often see is a spectrum. We see a spectrum of possibilities. For the monotheistic God, it's not absolute. So there are other kinds of divine beings that many Jews believe exist. For example, angels. Angels aren't gods, they're not to be worshipped, but they nevertheless are divine beings. If you have angels floating up there, is that monotheism? So this becomes a little bit of a question or a tension. There are several other tensions in the way we understand God. Is God universalist? Is this a God who is God of the whole world and who is everywhere all at once? Or is this God particularist? A God who is focused on the people Israel and who lives or whose presence is most concentrated or focused in particular spots, for example, the Jerusalem temple when it stood. Again, how one plots God as more universalist or more particularist, or often both in contradiction, right, is all encompassed in different parts of the tradition. Is God omniscient? Does God know everything? If God knows everything, though, can humans have free will? Or does God already know in advance what we're going to decide? And if that's the case, do we have free will? That's potentially a problem, because if we don't have free will, then we can't be punished for doing that which is wrong. So how do you reconcile God's omniscience with free will? Do you give God more omniscience and humans less free will? Humans more free will? God's less omniscience? Or are there ways in which to reconcile these? Omnipotence is another tension. Can God do everything and anything? Or is God limited in the world? Are there things that God simply cannot do? This is particularly important when dealing with issues in the theodicy. So if you believe that God can do anything, and you believe that God is just and good, then why is it that bad things happen to good people? There's no single answer to this problem, and it depends on how you understand the propositions of God and how you think about God acting in the world. Some things are easier to explain than others. Right? If I hit you, I've done bad, and that's my free will, but the reason you've been hit is because I've exercised my free will. But if a tidal wave came and hit me and pulled me away, or if, for example, God forbid, a child gets cancer and dies, how is that a just and good God acting in the world? Why would God allow such things? The point here is not to answer any of these questions because they're all live questions. They're live questions within the Jewish tradition, and they're live questions, frankly, for us today. But to show that there's an actual range of theological possibilities, even before the separation into different movements.